Welcome. My name is Gary McEwey, high school practice leader for The Leader in Me. We're extremely excited to be launching our very first teen leadership series entitled QuaranTEENed. Our title this week is Adoption. Team?
Hey guys, this is Braden, and today we really just wanted to kind of dive deeper into this idea around change and how all of us are really dealing with it right now. So there's three constants, there's choices, there's change, and then there's principles. And so choices are the decisions we're having to make, principles are how we're basing those decisions, and then change is the reason we're having to make those choices. And change is inevitable. Nobody could have predicted all of the things that we've experienced these past few months, but it was going to happen anyway, and change will continue to happen. And it's ironic because over 80% of people believe that change is going to make things worse for them. When in reality, if we can learn how to deal with change, we can actually improve ourselves and make ourselves better. So team, maybe just a couple of you all comment on how have you all been dealing with this change, and what do you all think about that?
I think that dealing with the change has definitely been like a huge roller coaster. I feel like there are two types of people that are good with change and people that are bad with change. And honestly, I feel like I've been both. I started out as being really bad with change, and over time, I feel like I've just become like comfortable with being uncomfortable, if that makes sense. Like releasing the reins, letting go of control, knowing that like I can't control everything. And honestly, like it's made life so much more fun. I feel like I'm such a more like adventurous person now. Like I don't know, it's easy to get caught up in your plans, but once you kind of release that and like realize the things that you have around you, it's a lot nicer.
Yeah, I'm definitely with Abby, and just like how we're talking about the zone of adoption, that's where you're making a bunch of mistakes and you're going here and there and you're figuring things out. And I think that I had a good solid 2 weeks where I was just figuring things out and I did not know what was going on, especially when I still had schoolwork and it was just a big mess. But after a while, you kind of find your rhythm and you just stick to that. And honestly, I feel like I've come out of this healthier. I'm eating healthier. I feel like especially because we're teenagers and we're finding ourselves now. And I feel like I've really found myself even more than if I were to be having a normal time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Divine on that, because in the beginning, I think in the first few weeks, right when we had school, was that zone of disruption where we were kind of getting used to things, and then we're adopting the situation right now, so it's becoming something that we can benefit from instead of get harmed from. So I've been really good about keeping a schedule. I've been eating not so healthy, but I've been eating less. So it's like you win some, you lose some. So that's just the way that I've been taking it.
For me, I feel like, especially at the beginning, I was a very busy person, and so I lost my softball season and all that. So I was really sad, but I learned to just take it day by day, and now that's kind of just how I've been taking it now. And so I agree with Abby and Divine and Nyla with just being able to be comfortable, but also being uncomfortable.
Right. And so I agree with everything that you've been saying. And then I guess just so that our viewers understand really more about what we're talking about, when everybody's saying these things about the zone of disruption or the zone of adoption, there's this thing called the change model, and then there's the zone of status quo, where basically where we normally live, life was going great. And then there's this zone of disruption where you kind of dip down and you have to deal with all these new challenges. So we were entering into quarantine and nobody really knew what was going on. And then there's a zone of adoption where you're starting to learn these new practices and you're starting to find new ways of doing things. And it might be all over the place, but eventually you're going to get to this final stage called the zone of innovation. And that's where we find results, and that's where we kind of find our new normal. And so how have you all been maybe showing courage in the face of all this adversity, and how do you all think we're going to get back to that new normal? What does that look like for you guys?
Accepting that change is hard, regardless of if it's a little change in your life or whether it's a big change. I think the percentage is really high that people that think change would be worse because, people view it, it's going to be a huge change in their life. But change can happen with just, your small routine to your character or who you are. So it just really looking into the future, just taking it that day by day, taking the small steps, the small changes to lead up to the big change. That's kind of how I see for the zone of innovation, just making those small changes to help build to the big change.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Dylan is saying, especially with little and big changes. I mean, last week we did a whole episode on what's been going on in our country with the racial tension, and that's a big change. And of course, it's gonna kind of be the same thing. There's gonna be a moment in time where we're in the zone of, the zone of disruption was the weeks that this was just happening and everybody was concerned and it was a big issue. And now we're getting into where it's the zone of, I can't say that word, adoption, and we're figuring out what we're going to do and how we're going to make this problem go away. And hopefully we'll get into the zone of innovation where we have a better lifestyle. Things are better than they were before. And it's just like that with even little changes, like how my family's been eating healthy. We had to figure out what we're doing first. And then we get to this place where we're innovative. We know what we're doing. We have recipes. It works with big and little changes.
Yeah, I think that especially looking at the model, like I feel like it's very accurate to where like usually when we think of change, like being the glass half full person that I try to be, I just like to think of it just going woo, just like going up. But like it's true, like you'll sink down and it'll be hard, and then you'll move a couple steps up and then take a step back, then move a couple steps up, take a step back. Like there will always be like a constant struggle there with change, but if you keep your eyes focused on like the end goal of being able to settle into being better than you were the day before, then that's the only way to like move your foot in the right direction through all of the sinking time.
I feel like with change, like that whole diagram, and as Abby was like, that's like how it is. Like you stoop down a little bit and then you go up, but like also that's life, like in general, that's like what happens. And so like in life, like everything changes even when you don't want it to.
Yes, I like everything that you are saying. I like how you said, Hannah, that that's just life. And I feel like the change model, it can be applied to really every situation. Like Divine was saying, what we talked about last week, it applies to that. Quarantine, it applies to that, and COVID-19. But really any sort of challenge that you're dealing with, any sort of challenge or obstacle that's put in your way, it's going to require some sort of change to get past it. And so if you kind of use this idea of like accepting that change, knowing that there might be some downhill slopes, and there might be some times where not everything is going as great as you would want it to be, but also knowing that there is an uphill and that there is like another side to that valley, where you're going to come back up and kind of find like joy or success or whatever sort of thing you're trying to find on the other side. And so it's really a never-ending that we get better dealing with.
Brayden, you sound like that Hannah Montana song. You know what I'm talking about? There's always another. Yes. And it's just like that.
You're right. Oh my goodness. My sister loves that song. Before we kind of end today, everybody, I feel like we should leave the viewers with some sort of challenge, like some sort of thing to really focus on as they continue. What do you all think? Yeah? Okay. So I think maybe we should I want to challenge the viewers today maybe to just learn to accept change, and maybe like try 3 new ways of doing things you would have done before quarantine, but differently now that we're kind of coming out of it. So does anybody want to give some examples of that? Or maybe even Mr. McGuey, do you know any sort of examples?
Am I back on with you guys? Yeah. Well, how about you guys share out first, and I'll just share out closing thoughts.
Okay, well, off the top of my head, I think that if you go to the gym, especially as gyms are opening, you would go with the mask. So that's one of the challenges you could try.
I think that a big challenge is keeping, like, if you have to get like a belt with holsters in it or something, or like a fanny pack, but just always keeping hand sanitizers on you no matter what, because when you're out in the open, that is a good thing. And like just hop onto Bath and Body Works and just order it in bulk and then ship it there and just have it everywhere. Have a little hand sanitizer everywhere.
Yeah, and I think that another thing we should all do is I found hobbies that I really enjoy to do now during quarantine, and to continue those even as we're getting out. I've liked painting and making friendship bracelets, so I guess continuing that even after we're done.
Not to like touch everything. Like I know at the stores, like whenever you want to like, especially like at TJ Maxx or something, I'm like, oh my god, that's awesome. Like, no, don't touch it. Like you don't know what's on there. But yeah, unless like you're actually gonna buy it. So,
If you touch it, you buy it. So can I just share out? First of all, thank you so much. Very insightful discussion here. A few things I've heard. One, that change is inevitable, right? That's just a given. So we need to embrace change and not look negatively on it. Secondly, we understand what's changing and what to do about it. And then the third piece, you talk about that we can apply this discussion around this change model to apply it to life everywhere and use this model for the rest of our lives to get better. Asking me, one thing that I think it's more important for me personally to be even more deliberate and purposeful in setting some small goals for myself during this time and to continue this. And as I share with you guys, I'm into biking right now, pretty serious. So I have some goals for myself around accomplishing some biking around some of the lakes in Canandaigua in the Finger Lakes region of New York. So I think that goal setting piece is huge as well. So team, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom around this basic change model and adoption. And we'll see you all next week. Have a great week. Thanks, everybody.